All right, episode 555. Today's show is going to be brought to you by the Extreme Health Academy. If you are looking to take your health to new levels, if you're looking to overcome any kind of health disease, a health challenge, any kind of biological process like that you don't want going on, you're going to want to look at the Extreme Health Academy. This is going to be the number one place on the internet for cutting edge protocols, for cutting edge biohacks, for cutting edge information on how to overcome these things. So we're going to be partnering with Dr. John Bergman, and we're going to be doing monthly courses on diseases like cancer, like Crohn's disease, like digestive disorders, like diabetes, and all of these types of things, heart disease, cholesterol. So we'll be doing monthly courses on things like that, as well as body systems, organs of the body. So we're really going to give you the tools that you need to not just overcome your current health challenge, but to take your health to new levels, have more energy, to live longer, to have more drive in your life. It's going to be an amazing place. So we'll be doing group cleanses every quarter. We'll be doing in-depth protocols. There's going to be quick wins. There's going to be monthly Q&A, mastermind sessions, webinars. There's going to be a forum, a community. So if you guys want to learn more about how to take your health to new levels, it is just absolutely imperative that you check out extremehealthacademy.com. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us on another episode of Extreme Health Radio. This is episode, can you believe this? This is crazy. 555. Can you believe it? Oh, my goodness. So we've been doing this show since, I think, about August of 2012, I think we started. Somewhere around there, August or September of 2012. So thanks, guys, for joining us and just being on the journey with us, man. We're learning a lot every single day. Excuse me. Today, we are going to be talking with Daniel DeBaun of, he's the author of Radiation Nation, The Fallout of Modern Technology. And what I'm interested in is we're going to be talking about, mitochondrial health and this 5G network, cell phones, radiation, all this stuff, how we can protect ourselves. So this is going to be really, really good. I'm really excited to have him on the show today. He's a leader in the electronic emissions and protecting, or in shielding electronic emissions, I should say, and protecting our bodies from potentially harmful radiation. He spent 30 years in the telecommunications, I could say that, telecommunications industry, working with EMF, and he's also the author, like I said, of Radiation Nation, and he's been at this for about 30 years now with engineering experience, just doing a variety of different leadership and executive positions in that field. And so he knows a ton about all this stuff. So we're going to learn today about how we can protect ourselves from radiation, from cell phones, from laptops, all that good stuff. So let me just turn on Daniel's microphone here. Daniel, thanks for joining us today.
Justin, thanks so much for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share what we know about electromagnetic radiation and how it impacts the health of our lives.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on because there's a lot of rumors going on about this 5G stuff. I want to ask you about that. But before I brought this up, and I don't have a cell phone. Excuse me, I've never had a cell phone, but I'm told there are warnings on the inside when you get the actual paperwork for your cell phones. And let me just read a few of these. I'm sure you're very familiar with them. I'll just read a couple of them. There's about 12 or 13. I'll read one from Motorola. It says, when not using an approved body-worn accessory, always keep your cell phone more than 1 inch from your body. And here's what the Apple iPad says. To increase separation from the antenna located at the top edge, orient the iPad in portrait mode with the home button at the bottom. And there's all these different ones for BlackBerry, T-Mobile, all of them say this.
Yes, it's scary, and no one understands completely why, but these electronics around us are fairly dangerous to our health. We know a lot about it recently, and the impacts to our health, and I'm sure we're going to be sharing a lot about that over the course of the hour. So when you have a device close to your head, cell phones, for example, they are transmitting information to a cell tower. That's a radio frequency signal. That's what they call that, an RF signal. But I got to tell you, it's about a 2.4 gigahertz in the 2 gigahertz space. It's just that's the range. Remember that roughly 2 gigahertz space.
Okay.
A microwave oven. When you put a piece of meat in a microwave oven, it heats up the water, oscillates the cells, and those cells heat up and cook your meat. That's at 2.3 gigahertz. It's the close to identical transmission from your microwave. In fact, the RF signal is a microwave oven. So why are they telling you to keep it away from your head? Well, it's pretty simple. It is going to heat up your head by at least 2 degrees based on the standard.
So, but the erroneous part of what they're putting out, if I'm correct, is like you just said, they're only really looking at heat. They're not looking at anything further than that, are they? Oh,
that's exactly right. When the standard was developed some 30 years ago or so, it was developed with a 6-foot male in mind.
Okay.
They modeled that 6-foot male, and they allowed the area around the cell phone to heat up that area by 2 degrees and penetrate a man's head by 1 inch. If you're a child and you use it a lot, it goes completely through your head. If you're a female that's 4'5", it goes halfway through your head.
Wow.
So, yeah, the reason they say only keep it at least 1 inch away, because they're trying to minimize the liability. But the reality of it is, the only thing the standard was evaluated at was the thermal impact, not the biological. And of course, as you know, this stuff is more dangerous from a biological perspective than it ever will be because of a thermal emission.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, did they just overlook the biological impact just out of oversight? Because that's obviously, a lot of their lawsuits that people are suing them. You watch documentaries of people getting cancer and things. Did they just accidentally look over the biological impact and only focus on the heat, do you think?
You got to remember that when this stuff was developed, we didn't have a lot of knowledge. So I don't think there was an intentional misinformation to all of us. I really do think that they were attempting to understand in earnest what the impact would be. But certainly, over the last 30 years, what we know is there's a preponderance of evidence of dangers to the body, including the head, because of the biological impacts. Yeah,
that's crazy. I was looking here at this BlackBerry one. It says to keep it 1 inch from your body, and it also says the same thing about pregnant women. And then also in the T-Mobile insert, it talks about keeping your cell phone more than 6 inches from someone's pacemaker.
Right, exactly, because it interferes with electronics. it interferes with the electronics of your own body.
It's crazy.
If you take a cell phone, you put it against your chest, your arm is easier to push down. The reason why is actually interfering with the micro electronics that are within your body to control your muscles.
Wasn't it Dr. Bob Beck in the 90s that talked about how we're much more, what does he say, much more electrical than we are? I forget what term he uses, but Dr. Beck did a lot of work in this field as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Most of that stuff is temporary. So if you're exposed to it and you lose that muscle tone, and then they take it away from you, you're sort of okay. But the biological, that's where it's actually it's aggravating the cells of your body. It's actually creating a weakness of the membrane of the cell, which is known as oxidative stress.
Ah, okay.
And then once that happens, believe it or not, now you can actually have a penetration of calcium that penetrates the cell, and it can mutate the cell and damage the DNA of the cell. because of excess exposures. We know that ultimately can lead to tumors and mutations that can impact our
It's
body.
kind of doing the same thing to human adult cell walls, like you said. It's kind of doing the same thing to children, isn't it, with their blood-brain barrier? It's breaking that down as well?
Yeah, actually, that's what the scary part is. It's really like this big, huge human test, and they have children essentially as the guinea pigs. As I said before, 1-inch penetration to a 6-foot male is very different than a full penetration of a child using a cell phone at 6 years old and completely running through their head. We really don't know the long-term impact because, honestly, this stuff hasn't been around for that many years, 10, 15 years, right?
I know. Yeah, I mean, only 10 years. I think the smartphone was only, when did that come out, like 2005 or 6?
Yeah, it's really been fairly recent. And all these electronics that are around us are emitting these things, the Wi-Fi, your tablets, all that stuff. It's really been only in our lap for the past 10 years. In fact, it was something like in the late 70s or something, it was less than 30% of the country had cell phones. Now, more than 99%. There are more cell phones than toilets in the world. It's all of a sudden pervasive in our lives.
Wow. Yeah, I know that is such a gosh, it's such a fascinating thing to see the rise of this entire industry, even just in the last, I mean, cell phones were around 20 years ago, but just in the last 10 or 15 years, this rise. And so I'm curious with the kids, is it still an issue if they're touching the iPad or they're touching, the laptop or something like that? Is that an issue, do you think?
Actually, it's less of an issue. When you talk about the impact of electromagnetic radiation, you really talk about how it impacts your use. And a child that's using it is very different response than you have. But the reality of it is your fingers are very resilient of emission. So if you're texting, for example, your fingers are pretty safe. In fact, the way I like to think of it is you never heard of anybody dying from electromagnetic radiation tumors in their hand. That's because they're really pretty durable. It's really the very, very short tissue of the body that you worry about, like the frontal lobe of the brain, like the heart. Those are the more exposed, like the womb, like the groin area of a male. Okay. It's the soft areas of the body that you worry about most.
That's so fascinating. So this is such a touchy subject because people love their cell phones. And like I said at the beginning, I've never had one. I have no intention of ever getting one, but I love what they are able to do. I mean, they're amazing devices and I have nothing against them. I just don't want one, or for lots of other reasons outside of the EMF issue. But with all that said, what are some of the other issues in terms of, so that it's breaking down the cell wall a little bit, it's breaking down the blood-brain barrier in children. What else is it doing, do you think, to our bodies? I think people need to know this.
We know for sure. Actually, we're somewhat of a colleague of many in the science community. And there's a Dr. Ali Johansson out of Sweden, probably one of the most well-known experts in this space. And he's been observing over the last few years, which has been collaborated with other research, that it's not just the cell that's being impacted. We also know that while it's doing all that, the immune system is being deteriorating. It's suppressing the immune system. And that actually is part of the long-lasting problems that we have with exposures. In fact, the origins of you probably heard of multiple chemical sensitivity.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's where the cells are saying, stop exposing me to that toxin. Well, the reality of it is electromagnetic radiation is a toxin, and there's an equivalent to that exposure called electromagnetic radiation hypersensitivity.
Mm.
And believe it or not, maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is less than 15%, maybe 10%. Now it's in excess of 20%. So the cumulative exposures to the immune system itself, as it weakens, hurts you more and more when you get exposed.
Yeah, that's interesting too, right? Because that's sort of more of a systemic effect, right?
Yep.
Like the immune system's weakening, and then, it doesn't really matter. You can just get a cold, and, that cold turns into something massive.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's really only recently that we actually have begun understanding the mechanics of that suppression.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, and it makes sense because if you're electromagnetic hypersensitive, you tend to, it gets worse over time. And what's always true is you're never born with it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening? It's exposures, it playing with your immune system to some extent.
Yeah.
So that's, and by the way, Dr. Ali, that's his expertise, is electromagnetic radiation hypersensitivity.
Yeah, maybe we'll look him up. That sounds interesting.
He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah,
He's
that's
just really a leader in this space for us.
That's
cool.
That's great. I know that in Europe, there's the cell phones, the signal strength doesn't go out as far, from what I understand, and I also understand that at some point, the United States. I'm not sure if you can speak to this, but the United States, when we were first setting up our electrical grids and everything, chose the 60 hertz frequency, and that was shown to be the most damaging of the frequencies we could have chosen. And Europe, I think, uses a different frequency. Can you speak to that at all? And if that's affecting us? Okay.
It is absolutely true. Europe is much smarter than we are as a population. They actually required that the standards restrict the strength of the signal by half.
Wow.
So when you're exposed, it's really half the energy level.
You're exposed to any kind of electrical device, or just cell phones?
Actually, cell phones, they emit RF and extremely low frequency ELF. And that, by the way, is the electricity at 60 hertz you talked about.
Oh, okay.
That's electrical, like the motor in your refrigerator, the hair dryer that you run, the toaster that you run, toast your food, bread in.
Uh-huh.
All of those generate, as a byproduct of their operation, a 60 cycle extremely low frequency emission. So what does that do? Well, if you are pregnant and you expose yourself to extremely low frequency emissions, even at very, very low levels, you are 3 times likely to have a miscarriage.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
I've heard you talk about that. That's interesting. Say that one more time. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, when the extremely low frequency stuff, the 60 cycle stuff we were talking about, electrical power grid, everything in your house typically runs on the 60 hertz at 110, 120 volts. Those emissions, which is a byproduct of those products working, can be extremely low strength level. Mm-hmm. And if it's close to a pregnant woman, they're 3 times as likely to have a miscarriage as a result of that exposure.
Was that... I feel like there's this lady, Cindy Sage. Are you familiar with her?
Cindy Sage? Yeah, absolutely. She's out in California with you guys.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I feel like I heard some of the same stuff. Maybe she was the one that I first heard about the study from.
Do you know what's sad about that? She learned it 30 years ago.
Oh, my gosh. Really?
Yeah. It's not a recent observation on her part.
And I think she said something about like a 16 or 18 milligauss or some sort of...
It's actually 10 to 15 milligauss.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a really low stuff. And in fact, by the way, with Cindy Sage, she, Dr. Carpenter, they are all part of the Bio Initiative, which is a organization of experts, world experts, that study every year the current understanding of the research community in this space.
Wow.
So you may want to invite your audience, your listening audience, to go to the Bio Initiative group and look and see what the most recent research has. And they really have done an extraordinary job of informing us of these exposures and what they can do to our bodies.
That's so good. It's so important. In today's world, it's really important to understand that, all this stuff is just an assault. Like anything that's not natural, anything that is outside of living close to the earth is going to be an assault to our immune system. And so if we want to live in the modern culture, we really have to, it's like biohacking. I know you've been on with Dave Asprey, and he's one of those biohacker guys. And, it's really important to adopt strategies to protect ourselves from all the cool things. I mean, cell phones are really amazing. But it's important to adopt, these sort of strategies so that we can live in harmony with these things,
Yeah, and in fact, Justin, the way I like to think about it is a cow doesn't generate emissions. That is, nature itself doesn't create electromagnetic radiation. Everything we're exposed to essentially is the stuff man created. And up until 10, 15 years ago, it was no big deal because nothing was really, really close to the body. It's only in the past 10, 15 years that all of our devices... I used to be working Bell Labs, and 100 feet away from me there was this mainframe, actually several mainframes, and they'd operate, and they'd have all these incredible emissions. Fast forward to today, it's all on my lap. The same power, and the emissions are coming out, but the difference between then and now is now sitting in my lap.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going on. That's what's different. And as you point out, preventative strategies for protection is really, really important for you to sort of evolve when you're using all these technologies around us every day.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about those near the end. I'm curious, there was a recent study, I'm sure you're familiar with this, they said about around 350 kids, 350 children, anywhere from 6 months to 4 years, found that just about all those children, 96.6, used mobile devices, and most started using them before the age of 1. Isn't that nuts?
It's really...
That's crazy.
I hate to talk about the impact of children because it is a major world experiment. And with these ages... So last year, the National Toxicity Program, which is a division of the federal government, they did a study of transmitters, cell phone transmitters. And those transmitters were against an epidemiology group. And it was a significant $25 million study. They had isolation chambers. They had all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
And what they found was, depending on the length of time they were exposed, there was a 2% to 13% increase in frontal lobe tumors, as well as heart tumors that converted to cancers.
So you said 2% to 13%?
Yeah.
Wow.
How come everyone doesn't know that?
That's crazy.
It's really, really no question whatsoever that there is now studies confirming that there is direct links to our health, which is negative. And now we expose our children to those same emissions, and theirs is a lifetime of exposure. Mine was 10, 15 years, 20 years. Theirs is a lifetime. And we don't know the impact of it.
I mean, that's not even getting into like training the child's eyes and not, to see blue light or to get it, to remove a child from the imaginative state that they're always living in, and then looking at a screen and letting the screen dictate what they're going to see. It's like,
think of it this way, Justin. Think of it this way: when you have one bee in the room, let's say that bee is one transmitter from your cell phone, and that's the only one in the room. That one bee won't kill you.
Right.
If you have 1,000 bees in a room, 1,000 bees will kill. Guess what? That's what's going on in a school classroom. All these kids are now being required to have tablets and laptops, and they transmit to the Wi-Fi, commercial Wi-Fi, repeaters that are in the room. And so we talked about a cell phone has a power level. It's actually 1.6 watts per kilogram. And the power level in a classroom is 1/3 that full 1.6 power level. And that third is over a great period of time, 6 hours, 8 hours, however long the kid's in there. What is the exposure? There was a Dr. Cherber, I think his name is, out of the UK. He was a physician. I mean, a physicist. He did RF weaponry design. And he refers to his RF skills and knowledge that he developed as being weapons in the classroom when they have Wi-Fi in the classroom.
He actually used the word weapons.
Yeah, weapon in the classroom. He developed weaponry that influences the body depending on the power levels of the RF signal.
That's crazy. Wow.
It's scary.
Man. So I want to ask you about mitochondria and sperm in just a second, about what the radiation does to those. But I wanted to ask you, are you familiar? There's a really good talk that it's on my list of documentaries to watch, or actually YouTube videos to watch. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's at this European Open Mind Conference, and this guy does a whole presentation on 5G. And I haven't looked into 5G yet. Do you know anything about that and what that's going to be doing to us?
Yeah, I know a lot about that.
Okay.
Up to 4G. No, when the standard was developed over 30 years ago, it was an analog signal. And an analog signal means it's a constant load hitting a cell. It's constant.
Okay,
so if you take a concrete pad and you take a steel bar and you put 10,000 pounds and you put 10,000 pounds on that concrete bar, it won't break.
Okay.
Digital signals, which are 2G to 4G, is a on-off signal. Data's on-off. So if you take 10,000-pound load, put it on a piece of concrete, lift it up, push it down, lift it up, push it down, what happens? It's a jackhammer. That jackhammer will break the concrete. Well, that's what it's penetrating your cell. That's why all of a sudden there's more evidence of that, because we have these digital signals that are actually bombarding the cells, and that's what's breaking those cells down. It's a jackhammer function. Is that similar to,
or one of the reasons why we went to all the digital TVs about 5 or 6 years ago?
We went to the digital TVs because you can put far more bandwidth of information in digital signals.
Okay.
And that's what's actually been somewhat the benefit of the modern technologies, is when we found out we can use certain protocols to improve the data from A to B, we started doing it. So let's answer your question about 5G. 5G is a digital signal, and it uses MIMO, multiple in, multiple out.
Okay.
So let's say your wife says, go fill out the kiddie pool with one hose. And then she says, Justin, I want this done by this afternoon. So she says, put a second one in.
Okay.
So you put two. Now you've filled it in half the time. Well, that's what it is. Two digital transport within the signal. So where you had one jackhammer, you now have two. And by the way, you're also moving up the spectrum from 2.4 for the 2 to 3 gigahertz range to up to 60 gigahertz.
To 60?
Up to 60 gigahertz, yeah.
60, from 2 or 4 to 60?
Yeah, it can be up to as high as 60 gigahertz.
So is the difference between 4G and 5G, like when, I think you mentioned this, but like analog signals that would run on traditional wires versus fiber optic, is it that much of a difference?
There's no question about it. There's that much of a difference. And the difference is because the frequency range now is all of a sudden much larger than it used to be. And that's how look, if it takes 1 second for me to run from one block to the next, and I then go get a jet and put it on my back, and I turn that on. I can do it in 0.1 seconds. All of a sudden, I can go 10 times faster because I'm using a bandwidth that allows me to do that. Well, that's what happens when you go to 60 hertz. You go from 2 gigahertz to 60 gigahertz. That's 30 times faster in speed than what you had at 2 gigahertz.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, it's really, really fast. And by the way, they don't go very far, maybe a block or two, but they're really broad. And sort of the problem with that, as I mentioned before, that's more bees in the room.
Mm.
There are now more transmitters around us, so you get that broader bandwidth. But it's not necessarily good for our health.
Hope you guys are enjoying the show so far. What a cool guest Daniel is. I'm really excited to have him on. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. I just wanted to tell you a little quick story about this really interesting product we have in our store called the Rapid Release Technology Pro 2. This thing literally saved my life. Oh my gosh. I had this debilitating back pain in June of 2016. And it was to the point where I couldn't even walk. I've never experienced pain like this in my life. I almost didn't want to keep living. It was so bad. My back was, I had zero range of motion and my back was just on fire all day, every day. I couldn't stand. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get up. I couldn't even go to the emergency room because I couldn't get into a car. I couldn't lay down on a stretcher. It was so bad. And after about a week, when normally it should be healing, it was actually worse. And we had a lady that was kind enough to stop by after her workday of seeing patients at about 7:30 p.m. and use the Rapid Release Technology Pro 2 on my back. And this is a tool. It's a high vibrational frequency tool that a lot of doctors and chiropractors are starting to use, and sports doctors as well, on people around the nation. And if you go to our store, there's really some cool videos you can watch. Former pro football players are now using this thing. And when she used this on my back, it opened everything up. It released trigger points. It gave me my range of motion back, and I was on the path to healing. I can't recommend this thing enough. And I use it over my organs, on my face, on the back of my neck. I use it on all my joints. It's an amazing piece of equipment. I can't recommend this thing highly enough. So if you guys want this healing tool around your house, if you have a family, if you have kids that are constantly getting injured, or if you work out and you get injured, this is a really important tool to have around your house for your own sort of healing protocols to have, just in case. And I use it every single day. So it's something that you can do as almost like a tonic as well. So check that out. I'll put a link to it as well. And I also wanted to tell you guys about this IMRS pad. It's a PEMF device. It's called the IMRS 2000. And this is a PEMF device that you can put on like a massage table, or you can actually sleep on it too. I'll read books on it, or I'll watch documentaries while I lay on it. And PEMF is pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. And we have some cool videos from the Dr. Oz show in our store if you guys want to check that out. But PEMF, some of the benefits of it are releasing muscle tension, improving circulation, stimulating the immune system, improving cell function and cell wall, helping the body to detoxify. It improves sleep, reduces stress. It is an incredible healing device to have at your home, and I use it every single day for 16 minutes. I lay on it for 8 minutes in the morning and about 8 minutes in the evening, and it has really, really helped my health tremendously, and I can't recommend this thing enough. It's just such a cool thing to have, and I'm so glad we have it. And they offer financing as well. So if you buy it through our link in our store, you can use the code EHR upon checkout, and you'll be able to talk to Bryant Myers, who's been a frequent guest on the show, talking about it. And what we've done is we put all of those videos and links and stuff like that on our show, actually in our store. So if you guys want to check out the PEMF device, I would highly, highly recommend getting one of these for yourself and for your family as well. Now, I've got a couple questions in regard to the 5G, because, man, I mean, it seems like this stuff is just put on us and we have no choice. So the 5G, what is the upside? Like, does it mean that we'll get better technology or quicker computers, or are they going to go to 6G, 7G? I mean, where does it end? Do you know?
the holy grail in all of this wireless stuff was broadband access.
Okay.
The faster you go, the more information can be shared, the less dependency you have on cable. You don't need any cable anymore. You'll have a transmitter. They'll transmit your movies, your cable service. Everything will be done wirelessly. That's the holy grail.
Okay.
It's eliminating the costly plant. It's really expensive to keep that plant running.
So are they going to? Are they going to go to like 6 or 7G? I mean, where do they end, or do they end? They probably don't.
I don't actually think they do, but I know over the last 30 years that the 5 was the sort of the objective. After that, it's another leap.
Is it? Okay.
But you get everything you need. The holy grail is met with 5G, and also that's the positive, and the downside of that, of course, is we really don't understand what's going on. And in fact, when the FCC was reviewing the standards, there were many of my colleagues who actually went to Washington to fight it. And at that time, there was a fellow by the name of Wheeler. Wheeler was the chairman of the FCC at the time.
Oh, wow.
Well, guess what? He was the chairman of the CTIA. It was a wireless telecommunications group for 15, 20 years. And then he ended up being the chairman of the FCC, and that's who approved of 5G.
Gosh, it's like a revolving door. It's like politics, isn't it?
It really is.
It's like
incestuous politics.
Yeah, like political figures will work in politics for a while. They'll be in Congress, and then they'll work on the board of Monsanto, and then they'll go back to Congress.
Right. Literally, that's exactly what happened.
Oh, man. So the thing that concerns me about 5G is, or any of these things is, you know how like if you were using your computer that you used in 1994 to access today's internet, there's no way that it could handle all of that data that's coming in through the wireless or through, all the high speed internet access and stuff like that. So the computers have to be more robust and they have to be stronger and powerful. So when you upgrade the network to 5G, obviously the hardware that goes along with it, which are the laptops and the computers that we use, the cell phones, they have to sort of correspond with that and become more powerful. So that's the thing, because those are the things that we're sort of holding in our hands and our laps and stuff. So are the computers going to do that? Going to kind of match the 5G?
Yeah, it's funny the way you describe it, because that's sort of exactly what it is. We all thought 1 gigahertz of data was a lot of data 5 years ago.
I know.
And now the 4G can go up to 10 gigahertz. You can go 10 meg of data can pass through your there's delays and stuff, but it goes pretty fast.
Wow.
Well, now we're talking about leaping that by 30 times. And what will happen is our computing platforms will evolve as well. And in fact, IBM just recently almost quadrupled or 4 to 5 times processing speeds now because of their work in quantum theory, quantum mechanics.
Oh, wow.
And so they actually broke that barrier. And we'll see likely within the next 3 to 5 years some now matching technologies that all of a sudden make our lives even easier because of all of the interrelationships of the technologies.
Yeah, it's fascinating because when you look at like cell phones and computers and iPads and things, I mean, the only real, I guess merging with humans and transhumanism and things like that and merging man and machine is the ultimate goal, it looks like. But until that happens, I mean, how much smaller can you get? I mean, the size is pretty much what it is. And so the only way they can improve it is speed and processing power, and all those things have an impact on our health, you know?
Oh, yeah. And they've used very, very large-scale integration, too, which takes all that technology and puts it in the head of a pin.
Gosh, so crazy.
And all those things are happening. And honestly, I don't know if you recall when you had your first XP, it was, almost the size of a desk.
I remember.
Now, you have 10 times the power in your cell phone than you used to have on your XP.
Isn't that amazing? It's
unbelievable.
It's great, but I just wish there were other technologies that could be used in place of, to make this stuff healthy for us, or make it at least not damaging to us,
Well, there are actually. There's actually optical technology being reviewed for communications where it's not an electromagnetic signal that will be used, but an optical signal. You don't have the same exposures.
So what is that, and is it just a cost issue for companies to run that, or?
It's over the air, and it's extremely costly. We're probably 5 to 10 years away from that. And what's also true is, we haven't spoke about this, but RF signal is a omnidirectional signal. That means it goes in every direction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the technologists are fully aware that they can make it unidirectional. They can make it more in one direction. And so your smartphones could find the path to the transmitters and transmit to those receivers and not be omnidirectional and exposing everybody while they're doing it. So there's a lot of different technologies that are emerging that actually can help. But you know what? They won't do anything until we all scream about it. They could do technologies today in cell phones to minimize the dangers by simply shielding the transmitters and reduce that exposure, but they don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the question is whether or not, as far as a company is concerned, as you and everybody else knows, is it going to provide the reliability that the current system has?
Right.
Is it as reliable, and is it more expensive or less expensive? And those are the only two things that really matter, not our health in terms of these companies. So if we can solve those two problems, then we're on our way.
Yeah, that's a fundamental. It's a cost benefit profile. That's it. But think of this though. When I was 12 years old, I smoked cigarettes to be a big man. That's quite a number of years ago, right?
Right.
At that time, absolutely nowhere was there any association with links to cancer.
Okay.
Yet at that time, science knew exposures to cancer from smoking occurred, and it was only after they lost in court that it became common knowledge.
Interesting.
That there was an exposure. Yeah. And in fact, years ago, in the late 70s, for example, there was the head of Philip Morris was in front of a pediatricians in the UK, and the pediatricians asked, was any impact for a pregnant woman in smoking? And his response was absolutely not. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there is some impact, though. They'll have smaller babies. And what woman wouldn't want a smaller baby?
Oh, right.
That was the mentality at that time.
Isn't that nuts?
It is crazy
Wow.
how we think of it in time slots.
Yeah, a lot of times it takes decades for the science to show and for the industries to turn around. You look at those magazine adverts from the 1940s, I think it was, where it says more doctors prefer camels. It's
right. Well, think of this too. There was a Fred Cameron, I think his name is. He was a biochemist.
Okay.
He was over 30 years ago. He said it wasn't the eggs that were killing you with creating the cholesterol. It wasn't the butter, the natural butter that was killing you.
Uh-huh.
It was the trans fats that were being introduced into our food that was the problem. And guess what?
Wow.
It took over 30 years for the public to recognize it and for the governments to ban it. In fact, I think this year was the first year it's actually banned from all foods.
Wow, that's 30
how long
years.
It takes. Yeah, that's how long it takes.
That's really crazy. Yeah, and unfortunately, during that 30-year life or span, we're all guinea pigs, and the people that come and are born after that get to sort of ride on the coattails of new legislation or a healthier life. It's
it's acceptable collateral damage almost, because we know that there was evidence at that time with smoking. There was evidence on trans fats, and there's been evidence for the last 30 years of exposures to electromagnetic radiation and its impact to the cells.
Yeah.
I actually found data 30 years ago that was written by the U.S. government about exposures and the impact that it can have on the cell.
Gosh, that's so nuts. Have you seen that documentary, Resonance of Beings, by any chance?
No, I don't think I did.
Oh, man, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. It is such a good documentary, and it goes through, it's done by, I think, a couple different people from New Zealand or Australia. And it is just fascinating. It goes into all these health effects of what these wireless things are doing. And this was like 10 years ago, you know.
Right. Yeah, it's not like a mystery 10 years ago. We knew the exposures. I got to tell you, I was in the telecom industry, and a significant leading officer of one of the largest cell phone companies found out of the technology, what we were doing. And he loved what we were doing, but he said, I can't use it because if I do, then I'll prove that it could be potentially dangerous.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, believe it or not, true fact.
And what did you do when he said that?
Nothing.
Gosh. That's
I knew before I...
Man, that's just so, it's so sad, you know, that, you know, it's just really is about money and, man, oh.
Well, as I said, electro hypersensitivity is on the graze. We know that for the last 10 years, frontal lobe cancer has been increasing, compounded every year for the last 10 years by 2%.
By 2%, 2% and 2%, 2% for the last 10 years?
Think of it, yeah. Right. Think of that.
That's pretty.
That's a technical fact.
I mean, that's pretty crazy because when you look, if you know, for those that know about compound interest and investing and stuff like that, you know, at the tail end of 10 years, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's funny. I have a physician, personal physician, and we were talking. He's old as I am, and he telling me that his friend was a promoter for the Beach Boys.
Oh, okay.
35, 40 years ago when they started, whenever they started. And they all had the RF transmitters on their heads. And they used to communicate with the group when they would have these concerts.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Every one of them died of cancer.
Every one of the Beach Boys?
Every one of the guys who did the promotions for the Beach Boys
I see. Oh, my
died of cancer of the brain.
Wow.
So when I talk to him about this stuff, he's like, wow, you know, you don't have to tell me. I don't need anecdotal evidence. I have personal experience of the impact of these exposures and what they can do to you.
Oh man, I know it's shocking and fascinating at the same time, and and I want to get into some things we can do in a little while in terms of protecting ourselves. But I wanted to ask you, going back to our mitochondria, the energy powerhouses of our cells. We had a guest on, Dr. Jack Cruz, and he talks about how we need to stop looking at the DNA. What we need to start looking at is one level up, and that is the mitochondria, which controls the expression of the DNA, and controls thereby, you know, disease processes and stuff like this. And so my question is, do you think radiation from cell phones and Wi-Fi and all this affecting our mitochondria?
Actually, when there is when there's oxidative stress, the proteins that go between one cell to the other stop communicating.
Okay.
And so there are functions that are now being affected, which are important for healthy cells. When you have exposure for electromagnetic radiation and it's with a cell phone that's right next to your head when you sleep, what's going on? It's not just affecting the cells of your brain and your body. It's affecting the processes of creating melatonin. So you don't sleep. So it's the processes within the body that oftentimes are stressed. And as a result of the stress, the system is out of sync. And I often have a business associate, chemical biochemist, and we talk about the higher level functions actually being impaired as a result. And honestly, you can't predict the ultimate outcome to an individual because it's unclear the direct relationships to those exposures. So there's no question about it.
Now, I'm curious because when you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if I go on and I could look at PubMed and see if they've done any studies. Are they doing really any studies like this? Because, I mean, the only good that can come out of a study is bad news, for these telecommunications industries. So are they actually doing any studies, like real studies about this?
Well, it turns out that independent study is really leading the charge.
Okay.
Sanction studies, industry sanction studies, tend to talk about it. In fact, I mentioned to you Wheeler when he was the head of the DCIA. He actually had a physician said, "Go find out if there's a problem with cell phones." He goes out and he says, "My goodness, I went through the world and I found so much data, and it says it can impact the health of an individual using the cell phone." He ceremoniously fired the guy, destroyed his career, and so there's been a consistent management of data we get from the public. The ones that are most limited are those that are done by the industry. Those that are not tend to be a discussion about impact. It's only in the last 5 years, by the way, we know the breakdown of the cell under exposures.
Oh, really?
It or not. Yeah, we up to that point, we've not really we've noticed it, but we didn't know the mechanics of the breakdown. But it's funny when you talk about a breakdown of a cell. X-rays are referred to as ionized radiation. And what they do is they break the cell up. It actually knocks the electron out of its orbit, charges it, and thus called ionized. That we know the next steps for. It's only in the last 5 years we've found out that the breakage of the cell is not the same. Yeah, we talked about calcium penetration as being the source of nitrite buildup and so on. But it's ultimately, after that, the same. So it's as serious as exposure to X-ray over time under the right exposure conditions. You've got to be careful about it.
Now, how long do you think someone should work on a laptop, or assuming they're unprotected in any capacity, if just the average person, how long? I mean, different people say different things in terms of holding a cell phone up to your ear and stuff like that. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, in fact, let's talk. I'm going to answer that question for you in the context of other caution.
Okay.
We talked about the bees in the room, right?
Right.
Turn off the bees in the room if you don't need them. With a cell phone, for example, you have a Wi-Fi, a Bluetooth, and a cell phone transmitter. Turn them all off, except for the transmitters for the cell phone. Your routers, turn them off at night. Any device that's generating a signal, all you got to do is turn it off, and that reduces the number of bees in the room. So always think about where are the bees in the room and how do I turn them off.
Okay.
If you don't turn them off, there are two other components you got to worry about: time, duration, and distance.
Okay.
The distance is, you take a cell phone and you touch it. There's 1.6 watts per kilogram penetrating your head. If you take it and move it 1 foot away, 80% of the potential dangers to your cells are gone. Just 98 by 4 foot. In other words,
interesting. Okay.
It's exponentially dropping with small linear movement.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so distance, just put it farther enough away from you, and you're pretty fine. Durations of time, If you use a cell phone for 5 hours, you're far more likely to have impact to the cells than you use it for 15 minutes or less.
Mm-hmm.
So you really want to always be less without any protection.
Mm-hmm.
These are simple rules. Remember, reduce the number of bees in the room. If you're going to use something, when you're not using it, make sure it's far enough away. When you're using it, make sure it's far enough away if you can make it that way. And if you're going to be using it directly against your body, make sure it's a very small period of time, 15 minutes or less. Now, you asked me about sperm before. Mm-hmm. A male sperm is immobile after 3 to 4 hours of exposure to a cell phone or a laptop emitting RF signals.
Really? 3 to 4 hours, completely immobile?
25%. It's been replicated in many, many studies. And women. There's an exposure to women that can have far-reaching impact. In fact, some physicians talk about it in the context of a catastrophe yet to come, because they talk about the womb, the egg of a young teenage girl being exposed for many, many hours, and the cells be damaged, DNA damaged, to her subtending family members over time. So there's a potential for pretty serious stuff. We talked about having a pregnancy and having a miscarriage as a result of exposure, but there's other impacts as well that can occur to the female womb.
Yeah, it's so interesting because a lot of what we talk about is disease prevention and natural remedies for things and stuff like that on our show. And, what we're talking about is, for as much as modern medicine and modern science knows, all we have the ability to do is to monitor, to regulate, and to manipulate the physical expressions of an invisible process. So, like disease, cancer, all these things it's some sort of invisible process, right? That causes a specific egg in a woman to be the one that drops and to be able to be fertilized by the sperm. It's some sort of, we don't know what's causing that specific egg to do that or that sperm to do what it does. It's some sort of invisible process. So all of this stuff that's going on with mitochondrial dysfunction and Wi-Fi's, all this stuff is an invisible process as well. And so, golly, it's even more dangerous in my opinion.
Yeah, well, the way I like to point it is you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't hear it. Some of us feel it, but it can be pretty dangerous with our senses not being able to detect what's being exposed, those exposures we're receiving.
Yeah, with smoking, you can see it and you can smell it, and so it's happening. But man, I'm not electrically sensitive. I can't feel anything really. Yeah.
If you look at the World Health Organization, they talk about RF as a category to be carcinogenic. In other words, it can potentially cause cancer. Arsenic is considered a category to be potentially carcinogenic. It's as serious as that in the World Health Organization. In fact, when in their draft, they called it a carcinogenic, politically adjusted to a potential carcinogenic.
Wow. Man, oh man, oh man. Well, the good thing is that, who was it that said in that famous line in a book, we live in the best of times, or we live in the worst of times, we live in the best of times?
Yes.
It's really cool that we have the solutions out there. And that's what I like, is that, you don't have to be some crazy person like me who doesn't have a cell phone. You can have a cell phone, but you can protect yourself, So, I know you're involved with some solutions for people. So let's talk about what they can do for people, what they are, how to use them, and that kind of thing.
So 5-6 years ago, my wife says to my boys, who are adult men, using their laptops 3 and 4 hours at a time, that she wants grandchildren.
Right.
So my wife's not a technical expert by any means, but I quickly realized from my background that there could be a situation potentially to the health of our son. So I said, well, let's go buy something to help fix the problem. I couldn't find it. You know, we talked about extremely low frequency emissions and RF transmissions. I couldn't find anything that actually did a spectrum of protection for them. So I built them some stuff. I actually designed and patented some shielding device materials, and I built it for them. And then their friends wanted it, and their friends. And all of a sudden, I began building products as a company. And it was all about, we're not victims. We can actually shield ourselves and protect ourselves with various technologies from the technology that's around us every day. And so Defender Shield was a company we started, and we have it for our laps, our tablets, our laptops, our tablets, our cell phones. We have it for a variety of different products. And what we do is very simple. We just simply shield it. We prevent the omnidirectional signal from going towards the body.
I see.
And it still goes out where it needs to the routers or to the cell phones, towers. All those things still work, but nothing's penetrating your body.
That's cool. So are they still being emitted or receiving transmissions omnidirectionally, just not below you, right? Or below the tablet?
Right, exactly. And remember, anything that touches you is the most dangerous. Anything that's a foot or more away is relatively safe.
Okay.
And so that's a paradigm of all of our products. When you have a cell phone to your head, it's not touching your brain, but it is being transmitted out towards the towers, and it works.
Oh, okay.
So it's simple, but it's an effective way of minimizing exposures and the potential hazardous impacts to your body.
Are you at liberty to say what's in the pads themselves, or can you not?
You know what I did? There was the first transatlantic cable that went to Europe. Was developed by Bell Laboratories. They actually had a material inside that they had developed strictly to shield the wires from the fish. And so I knew that, and actually that's one of the materials we use. It was an alloy that was created to shield electronics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And their emissions. And then we have other, and by the way, we refract that signal when it goes through there. When you see a fish and it's not really where you think it is, that's refraction. Then we also have an absorption function. We have a cloth type material, actually a complicated cloth, that actually takes the signal and absorbs it, and it gets the energy gets lost within the fabric. And then we have a conductive path as a safety measure, just in case something gets through. It's actually a conductive path, and ultimately, from the resistance of the material, it dies within the material. So we actually have 3 layers of material we use, and it's to effectively eliminate the emissions that are hitting your body.
That's awesome. And so I'm sure you've tested it with different meters and stuff. Do you know how much it reduces? Is there a percentage that you guys have?
Yeah, actually, you know what we did? You can't use meters that are around you. The household meters that are typically used, they're actually omnidirectional by themselves. So, and they respond in so much inconsistent ways, you really can't use yours. Knowing that, we went to an FCC laboratory. And we went to a laboratory that specialized in extremely low frequency and RF testing. And we had an independent laboratory set up an environment and do our testing for us. And we were 99.8% on RF and 98 point something on extremely low frequency. So we had independent laboratory testing. And I always encourage that. Don't really take for word a comment of a manufacturer. You can't trust us.
Right. And do you have is there a link to those studies and stuff like that?
Yeah, we actually publish it right on our website.
That's cool. That's cool. So, yeah, you know what's cool, too, is I see on one of your products, a Conceal, Shield, Privacy, Anti-Theft, Anti-Spying travel pouch. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, funny, we know how to shield, right? And we had customers that were going to Europe all the time, and they kept on harassing us, build a product so my data doesn't get stolen.
Right.
So we built a pouch, and you put your phone in there, it won't ring.
Really?
Yeah, it won't ring because it doesn't allow a transmission out or in.
Now, that's a way to know if it's working. That's awesome.
Right. And also we have earbuds, too. A lot of our customers said, look, I'd like to eliminate any exposure whatsoever. And I really like listen to music. I like to talk on the phone with my earbuds. Is there something you can do? So we actually developed a conversion where we took the electrical signal, converted it to an acoustical signal, and we transmit up the acoustic air, vibrating air, to earbuds. So we eliminated electromagnetic radiation exposures through earbuds.
Interesting. Now, that is interesting to me because I listen to a lot of podcasts and, I'll go do my workouts, and usually when I'm working out, I'll listen to podcasts and stuff like that. How much radiation, or is there enough to be damaging that's coming from those little earbuds?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. The reality of it is, in all of the study work that's been going on, there's not this real granular breakdown of symptoms or circumstances. So in general, what we know is low-level emissions, any low-level emission can be dangerous.
Okay.
Now, it turns out with a cell phone, that those signals can go up to 3 to 5 miles. So they're fairly strong.
Mm-hmm.
Wi-Fi can go up to 500. It's not as strong, but it still goes a long way. Bluetooth, it can go 30 to 50 feet. So even that's much less. Mm. And then, of course, you have your earbuds.
Mm-hmm.
They're about the same as the Bluetooth. So the strongest is most dangerous, and it works its way down depending on the technology you use.
It's so crazy. We were talking with a doctor a while back, a friend of ours on the show, and he was sharing how when he was driving, I think he went to some sort of festival or some sort of event. He lives in Texas, and he was driving, I think, to like North Dakota or something like that. So he was on the road for many hours, and he had a cell phone with him, and his cell phone was either in his pocket or sitting on his lap or something like that. But what he was saying was so crazy that because you're traveling, the cell phone is reconnecting wirelessly to the satellites every, I think, 50 to 100 feet. And he didn't realize this. And so when he was done driving, he had this burn on his skin because his cell phone was sort of reconnecting or recalibrating every 100 feet or something like that. Yeah, that's
crazy. Exactly true. And by the way, the microwave signal was doing its job.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was at what happens is it goes to the maximum strength.
Okay.
The way to avoid that, take it out of your pocket, put it on the passenger seat, and you're fine.
Well, you know what, too? I still wonder sometimes when people have these devices and they're inside an airplane or they're inside a car or a train or a subway of some kind. Essentially, it's like a metal tube. Is that trapping all of the radiation inside there, do you think?
Yeah, actually it happens. The cell phones, they modulate power levels, low, medium, and high.
Okay.
So when a cell tower is 50 feet away from you, it's on low. If it's a mile and a half, it's on medium.
I see.
If it's 5 miles, it's on high.
Okay.
So the energy level is built up to try to connect. Well, when you're in a car, the signal can't get out because the whole body of the car is acting as a power source inhibitor. So it actually jacks up the power to get out.
I see.
It's jacking that power up that becomes more dangerous to the user. But reality of it is, you move that at least 3 to 4 foot away from you, and you're pretty safe. I wouldn't panic about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the biggest issue a lot of people have, especially in today's world where we know the dangers of things, and so if someone gives them a microwave, thing or food or something, they just sort of panic because, the microwave is going to kill me or the cell phone's going to kill me, all this stuff. But I think that's super important, is to have your mind right? And just and be confident. Yeah.
Like smart meters, for example. I'm sure you've heard of this. The smart meter concerns.
Yeah.
The reality of it is, if you have a smart meter and it's on your garage and there's 3-car lengths in between your house and the meter, you don't have a problem at all. The distance is actually eliminated as a concern.
Okay.
If you have it mounted on your bedroom wall on the outside and you have your bed, a headboard right at the meter, get your bed and move it to the other room. Simply by creating a little distance, you solve the problem of danger.
Yeah.
So you don't panic. You sort of just recognize where the bees are and deal with those bees.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. So it looks like you have some really, really cool products, and we're proud to promote your stuff because
thank you so much.
Yeah, we have your site listed in our store, and people can go there and learn more about what you guys are doing. But so it looks like you guys have primarily laptop, iPad cases, and you have cell phone covers and cases, headphones, tablets, shields, and those kinds of things. What other kinds of things are coming down the pipe for you?
Pregnancy blankets.
Oh, okay.
Women exposing exposed to emissions throughout their pregnancy are endangering not only their lives, of course, but the lives of their child. So we have a pregnancy blanket coming out. We have, believe it or not, a meter, a smart meter shield, where you'll actually be able to take this picture frame, essentially, and put it on the inside of your house. And as we mentioned before, you have a transmitting omnidirectional signal that will be stopped in the direction of within the house. So we have that product in development right now.
Oh, that's cool. Wow.
And we have blue glass, the Blu-ray glasses.
Oh, yeah.
We're finally coming out with those. It took us a while to develop it, but those are coming out probably within the next month or so.
Are those primarily for blue light or for radiation?
Yeah, no, blue light.
Okay.
It's for specifically blue light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? Those glasses, those blue blocking glasses, for me, it's funny because in our store we promote a lot of products, different prices. Your products are different prices and they vary. And sometimes people think, I got to get this, $1,200 sauna or whatever. But in terms of bang for the buck, man, when I got those glasses, they really changed how tired I get, how quickly I fall asleep, how deeply I fall asleep. I mean, that's a big deal, this blue light stuff, isn't it?
Oh, it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, blue light is electromagnetic radiation. It just so happens at its specific frequency space that it can be dangerous because it's getting through your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really do want to stay away from it, or have your durations shortened, or have glasses to protect them and shield your eyes.
Now, do you work?
It's an important thing.
Do you work on the computer at night?
I don't.
You don't? Wow, that's pretty impressive. I would like to say that myself, but I do, a lot of these things that you talk about. But man, it's hard not to do, isn't it?
It is very. It's funny. What I do on my workstation to minimize exposures, I actually push my laptop to the right top side of my desk.
Oh, okay.
I have a screen that I keep at least a foot to two or more away, a new screen, modern screen, which has 10 or less milligauss of exposure.
Oh, okay.
And then I have a wired keyboard. And so what I'm doing is pushing all the electronics away from me, and those that are close by me are less dangerous than the laptop. And then, of course, I use an Ethernet plug wire, and I connect to a router which is in another room, so I don't have that be in the room with me with my laptop. So I actually manage the exposures that are around me, and it doesn't change my life. It's easy to do, simple things. and I minimize exposures.
Have you gone so far as to hardwire your internet connections to different areas of your house?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That's what you've done?
You know, my wife likes watching Amazon TV.
Okay, right.
I ran a Ethernet cable from our router in the other room into the living room, and we don't use Wi-Fi.
Oh,
we use
smart.
the Ethernet. And guess what? It's faster.
I would imagine
than the
so.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's faster, right?
And you have no minimized exposures, and of course the TVs. Fortunately, I can still see 6 feet or more away, so I can stay away from the transmitted ELF transmission coming out of the telephone
right.
TVs. But I've eliminated those bees in those rooms. I never use any wireless anywhere.
Yeah, that's something that's on the list for us to do. I think you can get, we turn our wireless off anytime we're not using it, but still, that's the next step for us is to sort of hardwire all of our rooms. I think you can get any sort of electrician or cable person to come out and do that, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And by the way, you know, on your router, I have a timer on my router. So it goes off at 10 o'clock because I go to bed early.
Oh, wow.
And it comes up at 5:45 in the morning. It just turns on.
Oh, wow.
Simply by turning it off. You don't have to worry about plugging it, unplugging it, forgetting about it. You just eliminate the bees in the room.
Yeah.
By putting a little timer. You can put timers on anything.
Yeah, that's a smart way to go, right? Because if you are going to use, you know, the wireless, one of the things we tell people to do, like you just said, is, man, you got to turn that thing off at night.
Right.
That's imperative.
Yeah, we know for sure it screws around with your melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor, I can't sleep. Turn off your router.
Yeah.
It's literally true that we know that as a clear path from exposures of impact. And by the way, of course, there's also many other cranial things that go on with that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
But this stuff does mess around and interferes with functions in your body.
Have you guys looked into? I've seen those little covers you can put over the top of your router, much like a little cage, like a little mini Faraday cage you can put over it. But I would imagine that the router wouldn't work.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and if it does, then it's not working itself. So,
right.
There are potentially some things that can be done.
Mm-hmm.
The best of all, move it where the least amount of family members are at any given time during the day and night.
Mm-hmm.
And you could put it in a garage, and these routers they go throughout the house fairly readily, and you're relatively safe.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be careful where you put those routers. And now those, one of the we were talking about technologies before. One of the things that has been done, actually with manufacturing in Europe, is they actually have the capacity to turn off the transmitters unless it's being tickled to turn on from a application, a browser, for example. So they've eliminated the bee in the room simply by turning the transmitters off until it's needed. When it detects a request from a laptop, for example, it turns those transmitters on. So simple things like that are actually emerging in the marketplace, which actually will help as well.
Oh, cool. So let me make sure I understand that correctly, because that sounds interesting. So if you're using your computer and your wireless is not on, as soon as you, let's say, open up your browser and you try to, detect an internet connection of some kind, and if you do connect wirelessly, then at that point, the wireless will turn on as well.
That's exactly how it works.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. That was the discussion we had a little while ago, was what can be done. Well, when there's enough of us making noise about the problems that are being created, solutions are emerging in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are so many good solutions. It's so great to see. And,
yep.
It would be horrible if this 5G were being put on us and we had no solutions,
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, with the 5G, one of the things that differs from most of the previous technologies is you have to go in front of a planning and zoning board to get approval for a site to be built out to have 5G towers.
Okay.
That's been traditionally true. That's not true these days. In so many states, they've circumvented those processes. And if it's in areas that are common for the towns, they don't need a requirement and permit to build. So that's unfortunate. That's why you got to really be careful and take precautionary measures yourself.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, you can't do enough. I mean, you can't shield yourself enough from this type of stuff. And as more and more of this wireless gets put onto us, where it seems as if we don't have any choice or decisions about this technology. In my opinion, I mean, you really can't do enough. You really can't buy enough products and stand out and be grounded and do things that are more natural. You can't do that stuff enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think I've mentioned this. We're not. We don't have to be prey. We can take actions to protect ourselves, and they're not that complicated to do and fairly easy and straightforward to follow through on. We should do it. Mm-hmm. Even though I or you may never have a cancer to the frontal lobe as a result of a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you will be the one, your friend will be the one. I don't know. Science doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
You were mentioning before, what is the selection for the problems we have? It could be genetics. It could be excess exposures more than others that impact one more than the other. We really don't know. And so why take a chance if you don't have to?
Mm-hmm.
Particularly if you're young and starting out at a very early age for exposures for your lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful with your kids, with your family.
Yeah, and do we know... Gosh, I can't remember if I can remember this or not, but I wonder at what point in a child's life the blood-brain barrier is complete.
I think that's 21 or something like that.
Is it that old?
It is, yeah.
Wow.
In fact, that's the problem. Why does electromagnetic radiation go all the way through a head? It's pretty simple. It's very, very soft tissue. It's very, very thin bones.
Yeah.
It's very, very weak blood barriers. So all of this stuff is maturing, and as it's maturing under those exposures, that's when it's most susceptible. I like to tell a story. It was when we were developing the cell phone case.
Mm-hmm.
This is quite anecdotal. There was a parents who bought a 6-year-old daughter a cell phone, and the long story short, within a year, she passed away from frontal lobe cancer.
Oh, no.
And how easy would have it been for her if she put it in speakerphone? She had it on earbuds. She used shielding. There were so many different actions she could have taken, and that 16-year-old wouldn't have died.
Oh, man.
It's that serious. I mean, it's not as if it's an academic exercise. This is serious.
Yeah, serious stuff. Man, oh man, oh man. I got an email from Anne over at Defender Shield, and she mentioned that you wanted to put together a coupon code for people?
Yes, absolutely.
That's so nice.
Yeah, please. We have a coupon code. I think it's actually been activated already, and the code is EHR10.
Oh, that's so cool.
And they get a discount from us as your listening audience, and we extend that. All lowercase, by the way.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, all lowercase. Okay, I'll make sure and put that in the show notes so that people know.
Cool.
That's so cool. Well, Daniel, thank you for your work and your innovation and creating solutions. Because you know what, there's so many people out there, and we need these kind of people, that are sort of the whistleblowers of our society that are like, the dangers of this, the dangers of that, and there are legitimate dangers, but there's even fewer people that are coming up with solutions to these types of things. So it's pretty cool that you're doing what you're doing and you're offering solutions and hope. I mean, how many people have you seen women jogging or whatever, and they have their cell phone right on their breast, and there's solutions for this stuff now.
Yeah, right. I mean, they have a print within their breast of where they had their cell phone, and we know they become tumors.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, put it in your pocketbook, not your breast.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple thing.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing. That's and I love supporting your work. And it looks like you've done a lot of really cool podcasts as well. Been on some really cool shows. And that's what's encouraging too. I mean, there's so many great ways to get the message out these days, and it's not 1940 anymore. Everyone can broadcast, and everyone can have a platform, and it's really encouraging in that way, isn't it?
It's funny when we first developed our products and started selling into the marketplace. Do you know we were selling in Europe?
Sorry, what's that?
We were selling into Europe markets, not the U.S.
Really?
Nobody in the U.S. will, but yeah, because everyone's more aware of it there.
Wow.
So it was amazing that we do that. But then we were fortunate enough to start finding friends in the media space that would be that had interest in health and wellness, and had invited us to be part of their shows, and we appreciate that so much, because this stuff is, everyone should know about it. You should be aware of the environment we're in, as much as you are with non-GMO foods.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As much as you are when you want to eat organic. All of these things help us all live a more healthy life over time.
Mm-hmm.
And by taking an understanding of the environment, likely we'll be a little bit more to talk about it.
Yeah, I know, right? That's the goal, right? Is to stay healthy and stay young. I wanted to ask you one final question. If people want to find out more information, like I'm looking at your homepage right now, and it shows a woman holding a cell phone next to her head with one of your shielding cases on. And the first thing that came to my mind was, in light of what we just talked about, of not really doing or I should say the inability to do too much. Like for me, if that were me, I'd want to put one of your Bluetooth devices on that cell phone and still keep that cell phone, even though it's protected. Can people call up and ask questions like that?
Oh, yeah. In fact, we consider it very, very important that we share accurate information to our customer base.
Okay.
And you call anytime, any question, and we try to be as helpful as we can, explaining a fairly complicated subject matter as simply as we can. In fact, by the way, that's why we wrote the book. We were somewhat frustrated that science knew so much, reports and studies were so clear for so many of the past 10 years. Well, that message wasn't getting across to those who needed to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So we wrote a book, and much of it was based on our interactions with people trying to understand this stuff a little bit better and helping to enrich their own lives. So that's why we wrote Radiation Nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll put a link to that as well. And what's cool too is with all of this technology and all of this kind of alternative health stuff that we're all into, it requires education, it requires learning the dangers of modern existing paradigms and ways of living. And it requires an education and learning and how these things, these types of things can help you, like exposures to, chemtrails or, particles in the air and sweating and how that helps. And so it does require a bit of a learning curve. And so if you really want to be healthy, you got to learn, right?
Yeah, no doubt. We live in a time that has such an accelerated new technology so more rapidly than ever before. That means that we're benefiting in so many different ways, but it also means our environment's changing as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we really need to be aware of our environment and the new introductions of that, the technologies of those environments, particularly when they potentially can influence in a negative way our health. So I can tell you the federal government, there's no one that owns your life. If you use something because you think you're safe, think about the trans fats. A lot of people passed away from chronic illnesses because we knew 35 years ago that it caused health problems, yet it still remained in the market for 30-some-odd years. So this is not a unique pattern in our society. It always takes 10, 15, 20 years, maybe even longer, to understand the true impacts into our lives with technology introduced. So you really should try to keep your ear to the ground, listening and be aware.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for spending some time with us, Daniel. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Justin. I really do appreciate you giving us the opportunity to chat.
Awesome. Hang on the line there, Daniel, and we're going to just close out the live show. And just want to say thank you guys for listening and for being a part of what we do. The show notes for this particular page will be extremehealthradio.com/ this one's really easy, 555. So it's 555 shows we've done. And if you guys would like to share this show with your friends, we would greatly appreciate it. And we're not telling you that you can't use the cell phone or that you shouldn't, but there are solutions out there. And so this is what we have talked about today. And if you guys want to share those solutions with your friends, we'd greatly appreciate that. So thank you guys for joining us. I'll be back on the recap in just a minute, but thanks for joining us and passing this show on to your friends. We really appreciate that. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Kate and I have had our sauna for about a year now, I'd say, when we first got it from Phil Wilson. And it's an incredible machine. We use ours about every single day. Kate sits in about 20 minutes, and I sit in there about for a half hour. Usually watch a documentary, and it's extremely relaxing. It's really an incredible machine. And if you go to extremehealthradio.com/sauna, you can learn all about it. We did an entire hour interview with Phil Wilson. You can check that out. You can look at the pictures of us with it. You can watch videos on that page. It helps you to sleep really well. You can lose a lot of weight with it. You can burn, I think, around 600 calories in about 20 minutes or so. It improves your skin, increases circulation all over the body, and circulation is critical for your health. You can prevent and reverse diseases with it. If you have a cold or flu, it's incredible. It heats you down to the core. It heats 4 to 6 inches inside your body, so it's really incredible. And a lot of people use it for cancer as well. So if you have any kind of incurable, quote, disease, you can use it for that. And Dr. Shade is the foremost authority on detoxification. And listen to what he says about it.
How do I detoxify from plastics? I mean, you guys are using a sauna. And what does a sauna do for us? A sauna is great. It's moving a number of different toxins. Remember, we talked about the mice that if you put PCBs in there, then that made the mercury all that much worse. And sweating moves out a lot of plastics, volatiles, fat-based toxins. It's really good at moving those out, sweating those out. So that's how you're getting those out, and those are contributing to this synergistic soup inside the body. And so that's why they're good, is they're taking out a bunch of the different things in the soup.
And Daniel Vitalis, one of our favorite guests. What do you have to say about the sauna?
When you go into the sauna, like a far-infrared sauna like you discussed, your body goes into a deep relaxation mode, and your sympathetic nervous system shuts down and your parasympathetic nervous system turns on. And when that's active, that's the nervous system, part of your nervous system that's active when you meditate. That becomes active and your detoxification pathways open up wide. Why is this important? It's important because when you go running and you sweat, you're not necessarily eliminating very much toxicity from your body. But when you sweat in the sauna, you eliminate a lot of toxicity from your body. So sweating in a relaxed state is how we eliminate. The other thing is that what's wonderful about the sauna is that it puts you in a parasympathetic nervous system response, like as if you were meditating. So it's almost a hack. It's like a trick to get yourself into a meditative, relaxed state, to decompress stress, to reverse the effects of stress, and to get your body eliminating deep toxicity that's stored in your body fat because it can come out in the oils of your skin. So I think, sauna is one of the most crucial detoxification, really health practices that we could take on, especially in this era of heavy toxicity, particularly fat-soluble toxins.
This sauna is really, really great. They offer payment plans because if you buy it through PayPal, it's 100% secure. You don't even need a PayPal account. I think you could do a payment plan through PayPal. It's got low EMF electromagnetic fields coming off of it. It's portable, so that means you don't have to knock down a wall in your house. You can just move it from room to room. It sets up in about 2 to 5 minutes. It's super easy to clean. All you got to do is wipe it down when you're done and wipe the neck down. And it produces energy and heat inside very, very evenly throughout the whole machine. All you have to do is sit in there for about 15 minutes a day. And the great thing I like about it too is it requires zero preheating. So you turn it on and you're starting to get warm and you're starting to detoxify with that far infrared light almost immediately. So it's really great. It comes with a 1-year warranty. It's about $990 plus $25 shipping. And that's really, really a good deal because if you look at most of the regular saunas out there, they are in the $2,000 to $4,000 range. So this is really, really a good deal. So check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna. All right. So there you go. Episode 555 in the books. What do you guys think about that? That was really cool of him to offer that code EHR10 for 10% off. So, if you guys have any disposable income or have any desire to protect yourself, I think this would be an amazing thing to do. And what we'll do is we'll put this particular show in our store. If you guys go to our store, you'll see Defender Shield in there, and we highly recommend their products and support them and love their products, love what they do. They're doing some really cool stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me just take a look at our upcoming show schedule and see what we have coming up. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up. Actually, the calendar won't work right now. Bummer. But we do have a lot of cool shows coming up. We do shows every single week and we release them every Monday. And I want to let you guys know too, we're launching a, really awesome membership community very, very soon with our good friend, Dr. John Bergman. And we're going to be offering in-depth courses on all the different organ systems of the body. So like liver, brain, lungs, colon, all that. We're going to be offering in-depth solutions and courses, for you guys to learn how to take care of those specific areas of your body, really, really with practical cutting edge information that you're not going to get anywhere else. And what we'll be doing too is as new information comes in, we'll be adding to those courses as well. And so we're also going to be doing courses on disease processes like, diabetes and cancer and all these types of things, high blood pressure, cholesterol. So we will be covering those as well. So, and we'll be putting it up to a vote too, and seeing what you guys want as the next course. And so, we're going to be offering these courses. We'll be offering Q&A calls, mastermind sessions once a month, as well as webinars, free webinars. We're going to be doing a monthly challenge. We may even do like a group cleanse every quarter. And so it all depends on what you guys want. And, so the whole idea of the course is to help you come out of any kind of disease process your body's currently going through or any kind of, health condition that you're dealing with. It's imperative to overcome those things and to regain and reclaim your health, so that you have the energy to live your life, take care of your kids, do your work and that kind of thing. So, that's the goal of the course. And I know it's going to be the number one membership site academy, alternative health and natural health academy in the world. So we can't wait to offer this to you guys. And the other goal of the course too is to not just get rid of things we don't want, like disease or anything like that, but to also see what's possible with the human body. Is it possible to live to 150, 200, 250? Is it possible to live that long? And if so, what are the technologies and what are the biohacks and what are the latest research showing that we need to do in order to get there as far as lifestyle choices, diet, and all of that stuff? So we're going to be, seeing what's possible and taking your health to new levels. So this is going to be an awesome program for you guys if you guys want to check it out. And if you do, it's you can go right now. Right now, obviously, we're not launched yet. Our plan is to launch in January of 2018, so that's about a couple months away. But you can get on the waiting list, and if you're on the waiting list, the good thing about that is that you will be able to get access to the cheapest pricing available. So, unfortunately, if you're listening to this in like 2018, 2019. Since that date is already passed for you, that those prices are not going to be available any further. So if you get on the waiting list, and also just to make sure too that you want to be on the waiting list for that particular thing, because we're going to be offering the discounts to them. So if you're already subscribed to our newsletter list, that's awesome, and I highly recommend you do. But you won't get the discounts unless you sign up to the list that is at extremehealthacademy.com. So you want to be on that list so that you can get access to the best prices and be a founding member, and it's going to be awesome. So we're really excited about it. So if you guys want to check that out, and also check out in our store if you guys want. Make sure to offer the code EHR10 and you'll get 10% off. That was really cool. I wasn't expecting that from Daniel. So that was cool. The author of Radiation Nation, The Fallout of Modern Technology. So we'll put a link to that if you guys want to read the book. The book is really, really good. They sent us a copy, so that was really, really nice of them too. So just good people over there doing great things. I really like supporting people like that are coming up with solutions for different, our modern living, our modern way of life. And, I just encourage you guys to excuse me, to revisit those things in your childhood that you did, that kept you healthy. And if you look, at some of the simple things that a child does, to stay healthy, and they don't even know they're doing it. They just do it because it's fun. It's something as simple as like going outside and spending a large portion of your day outside, without any shoes on, with as much skin exposure to the sun. Obviously, you don't get burned, with no sunglasses on, so the full spectrum lighting can hit your eyes and your pineal gland. These are, breathing fresh air. I highly encourage you to adopt principles in your life that will take you back to nature. And that's, the further disconnected we get, or the more disconnected we get from nature, the more we allow and invite the disease processes of modern living into our bodies. And that goes from, the food we eat, to the thoughts we think, to the chemicals we're exposed to the indoor living, to the exposure to blue light frequencies, to the exposure to RF frequencies, all of these things, to sitting too long. Each and every one of those things in and of themselves may not damage you that much, but when you start living a modern life, driving in cars and, getting fast food, and all of these things are really taking a toll on our health, our longevity, and our ability to be there for our kids and to produce healthy kids, all these things, So I highly, highly encourage you guys to sort of take stock of your own life. Like, how much time are you spending outside? Are you protecting yourself from these types of things? Are you doing, things that can help restore your genetics and restore your DNA? Are you eating properly? With a modern insult, no matter how much you protect yourself, we're still exposed to, the glues that are in the wooden floors that we have in our house, or the chemicals that are in the carpet in our house, or, the paint that's on inside of your car. I mean, there's just no way to get rid of it completely unless you live in the middle of the woods, in a self-constructed home all by yourself. And, who wants to do that? So no matter what, you're always going to be exposed to these types of things. So our goal is to find out what they are, take stock of your life, and just look at anything that's unnatural. Look at anything that you're exposed to that you probably wouldn't have been exposed to if you were living in the middle of the forest, right? I mean, that's the ideal. That's really the ideal, right? So if you compare anything you're doing, eating, thinking, or participating in, and you compare it to living in the middle of the forest, as crazy as that sounds, if you take stock of that and say, okay, this isn't natural, and start taking stock of your life, and then looking at solutions like defending yourself from EMF radiation using a Defender Shield pad or a cell phone pad, or eating more naturally. One of the things I've been doing is eating outside. So I take the opportunity to go stand on the grass anytime I'm eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I'll take that outside, get grounded. And if I can just cumulatively increase my exposure to the elements and being outdoors. That's something small that I could do that's super easy to do. It's not like a 30-day cleanse. It's not like a juice fast for 15 days. It's something that we all can do. And so I invite you guys to look more into different areas of your life that you can just upgrade, right? Through biohacking or whatever word you want to call it. But there are so many things that we can do that are simple, that are easy, where we can restore our health. And so I really like what Daniel's doing over there at Defender Shield. And it's really cool. Like I said during the show, if there's such an assault on our health and on our immune system, but that at the same time, there's solutions out there for everything, so it's awesome. It's awesome to know that. So I'm super, super stoked to have had him on, and, maybe we'll have him on again if he's willing to do that. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that show, and stay tuned for more. If you guys want to jump on our mailing list, I'd highly recommend getting on our mailing list, our main one. I'd recommend getting both, getting on both. That way you'll be notified of the discounts when the Academy opens. But our main email list is awesome because we send it out every Monday and Thursday morning, I believe, around 6 a.m. your time. So and what we do is we highlight an old show. So we've done this show is 555. So, maybe there's some shows like episode 20 or 30 that you've never heard before. So what we do is highlight those. And then also in the email too is there's links to our previous 5 shows. So if you don't get a chance to listen or you're too busy, if you open our emails and check them out, there's links to our previous 5 shows. So you get to, get old shows highlighted plus, our recent 5 shows. So there's always something good in our email series for you too. And we also let you guys know too of any discounts, Black Friday deals, any promotions that are running, any, things that are going on in terms of the products that we promote. So if there's sales going on, we let you know about that, as well as any of the free summits that are going on as well. So oftentimes there's free health summits that go around, like the Truth About Cancer, or they do them for all kinds of different things like diabetes, cholesterol, heart health, all kinds of stuff. So anytime there's a free summit going on, that's available in our newsletter as well. So oftentimes people are really, really interested in specific subject matter or health concerns. And what's cool about the summits too is that they dive very, very deep into one particular subject. So they might have like 20 or 30 guests all talking about different aspects of like cancer, for example, if it's the truth about cancer or something like that. And so there's so many different angles and different topics to talk about within a subject that these summits are awesome. So if you're signed up to our newsletter list, you'll get notified, or there will be links to any current summits going on. So yeah, that's a good idea to sign up to our newsletter list. We send them out every Monday and Friday morning, or Monday and Thursday morning. So you can check those out. And yeah, thanks guys for being a part of what we do. Thanks for shopping through our Amazon link. I know some people have been asking recently, how can I support you? I don't really have any money, but I do shop on Amazon. Do you guys have an Amazon link? And so on the right-hand side of our website, if you go there, there's a link to Amazon. So thank you guys for your continued support and bookmarking our Amazon link and using it every time you make a purchase. Thank you guys. You know who you are, who support us via Patreon and PayPal every month. A lot of you guys send $1 or $2 a month, $5, $10 a month. So I really, really appreciate that. That helps so much. So thank you guys for that. And also thank you guys for visiting our store. I just want to let you guys know too, one of our recent items that we've added into our store that you may want to check out. And this is one of the other things that's kind of like along the lines of what we talked about today, but this is like cleaning the air inside your home. And how important is it to make sure that we're breathing clean air inside our home? And so it is really, really important to not expose ourselves to chemicals and poisons and toxins and stuff like that off gas from our mattresses, our carpets, and things like that. So the Air Doctor Pro is the solution for that. And recently we upgraded from the Austin Air to the Air Doctor Pro, because of the increases in technology. So what it does, it gets rid of cigarette smoke, gases, formaldehyde, pollen, allergens, VOCs, ozone from appliances, TVs, computers, and it removes about 99.99% of particles all the way down to 0.003 microns. So this thing is really, really awesome. And there's some cool videos on our store if you guys want to check out and learn more about the Air Doctor Pro. But that was the most recent product in our store. So thanks guys for visiting our store. It's how we're able to pay our bills. It's how we're able to continue doing the show and to research guests and pay for all the stuff that we have going on. So we appreciate your support through our store. So anyway, love you guys, and let us know if we can ever help you, and we'll catch you guys on the next show.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here